of frustration, full of despair. From years of hurt, disappointment, and relegation. Two British football fans have had enough. Canary bird Elliot Holman and wanderer Henry Hewitt are in search of glory, pride, passion, in search of silverware. And they found Major League Soccer.
Welcome to another episode of the MLS UK show. I'm Elliot Holman and here's Henry Hewitt.
Oh, I'm stuck now because I normally say it.
Oh, I forgot.
And I'm Henry Hewitt again.
He's here twice. And we're going to focus lots today. We've not talked about what's coming up on the show, but I'll tell you and I'll tell you at the same time. We're going to talk lots about the US Open Cup final between Orlando City and Sacramento Republic. And we're not going to talk at all about the result between Atlanta United and Orlando City. Here's a word from our sponsors.
No, you don't get away with it that easily. I'll tell you what, I'll look in my prep. There is one. I do mention the US Open Cup once. Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Prep?
Yeah. Orlando City went 1-0 up through Facundo Torres, who followed up his 2 goals in the US Open Cup final. That is the one mention I've got in my notes of that. So I've said it now, so I don't need to say it again. A couple of mentions, though, of Atlanta beating Orlando. We need help getting in the playoffs, so thanks for that. Very, very nice of you.
Charity.
Yeah, it is very charitable. But we're going to talk more about what's been going on in MLS and cup competitions, because New York City FC won one as well later on in the show. But first, we get into the business end, aren't we now, of the of MLS, the regular season. It's hotting up.
Yeah, and luckily we're still 5 points clear of Atlanta. We're clinging on for dear life.
Yeah.
But if we're all being serious, you know my feelings about this season. Not impressed. But yeah, loads to talk about, and that Philly train just keeps on running people over, doesn't it?
Didn't quite run Atlanta over the weekend. If Atlanta would be more prolific, we would have ran them over. But hey, we'll talk about that later on the MLS UK show. If you are new to the show, I keep saying that, but I mean, realistically, how many new people? We're on TikTok now. Maybe we're getting to that audience, but
I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I think it's our regulars. So hi again, everyone. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on your podcast provider and YouTube. But yeah, we're going to talk loads today. We're going to find out who our MLS UK show championship champions are going into the last few weeks. And you've got a game for us as well.
I have. Also, a little bit of admin. Hosting a big award ceremony next week, and I'm waiting to get my haircut. That's why it looks awful. Shall we do a game with a changing name?
We should, but before we do, I just got to mention, for the first time, you've actually, I don't know what you've been doing beforehand, but if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see you've actually got this room diffuser on the desk, which smells very nice.
It's very good, isn't it?
For the benefit of those without smell-o-vision or smell podcasting, it's lime, basil, and mandarin.
Which sounds awful, by the way.
That's very nice.
And I've had that for ages, and that's the last one. I thought, I don't want to use that one, but it smells great.
Well, whatever you were doing before, it's definitely made the room smell better. So yeah, game with a changing name, player who has played in both England or the UK actually, and MLS, and I've got to try and guess who it is based on their career path.
So this player, I've just seen a mention of Bolton in their club career section on Wikipedia. Not okay. They went on trial with Bolton.
Well,
probably not going to help you.
Yeah, no. I mean, if he didn't get a full contract at Bolton,
must be awful.
Yeah.
Okay, so they started their career in 1986.
Oh, that's a tough one.
At St Johnstone.
Right, in Scotland.
In Scotland, yeah. And then they moved to America, played for San Francisco, San Jose Hawks, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers.
Wow.
Necaxa, Seattle Sounders, Colorado Rapids, San Jose Clash, and retired at the Tampa Bay Mutiny.
Oof, quite the career. What year would that have been?
When they retired, it was the year 2000.
Right. Okay.
They've also played 54 times for the States, and they have managed in MLS as well.
Oof. When would they be on trial at Bolton then?
1994, after a summer trial with English club Bolton Wanderers, came to nothing. Spoiler alert, moved to the Fort Lauderdale Strikers.
Okay, not a clue at the moment. If you feel get in touch with us at MLS UK Show on Twitter, Instagram, or you can email us hello@mls.show. Comment on YouTube as well, and let us know what point of the podcast you realise who it is.
Yes, just to help you out as well. Lot of interim jobs as well in the time that we've been doing this podcast.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is interesting. But yeah, big... I'm going to say experience managing an MLS team.
Yeah, very much so. Good luck with that one. Let us know if you get the right answer. Right, we need to cover what's been happening in MLS, but before that, let's hear from our sponsors.
The MLS UK Show.
Hello there, I'm Elliot from the MLS UK Show, and whenever I'm on the internet, I'm normally on a particular website. Not that one. It's soccer90.com.
Yes, if you go there, it's got all the best in soccer apparel, MLS shirts, EPL shirts. There's also Bayern Munich and PSG stuff on there as well. And arriving on this Wednesday, so whenever you listen to this, whenever I can be bothered to turn it around, you could be listening to this, and it could be this Wednesday. You could be watching this on YouTube, and Wednesday was yesterday or today. Whenever, Wednesday, the 22nd, the US men's national team World Cup jersey appears on Soccer 90. You can buy it off there, and if you want to buy it, if you head to the checkout, in this discount code, type in MLS UK, you get 20% off it too.
Yes, get yourself World Cup ready and MLS Cup ready as well at soccer90.com. Let's get on with it.
MLS UK Show with Elliot Holman and Henry Hewitt.
Okay, let's have a look what happened this weekend in MLS. And before we do, a quick shout out to the likes of Ian Joy, Liam Ridgewell and Ray Hudson. As many of you would have seen, for the local commentators, the local broadcasters, this was their last weekend doing it. This is, of course, because Apple TV are taking over next season, which will be great. Will be exciting to see, but just a note to think of those guys. They're very talented. We've had them on the MLS UK show before, so I'm sure it'll all work out for them, but they've all done a great job. And I think I will miss the local broadcasters because we only get to hear them when it shows the highlights, and there's some very colourful characters.
Yeah, it's easy to get wrapped up in how, especially overseas for us, how amazing Apple, is going to be, the Apple X MLS partnership. So yeah, important to just tip a cap to those guys who've done excellent work.
Yes. Right, let's start looking back at the weekend's action, and we'll kick off with a Hudson River derby. This comes a few days after NYCFC won the Campeones Cup, beating Atlas 2-0. Our friend Barney, UK NYCFC, went out there to watch it, and so I've seen some of the photos and videos he's done. He had a great time. He met Don Garber as well.
Saw that, and did you see what he was listening to on the plane?
He was listening to MLS UK show as well, so shout out to Barney.
As if that journey isn't long enough.
And I'm sure he would have been delighted with this weekend's result, 2-0 to NYCFC. It's been a difficult few weeks for NYCFC, but this last 7 days will certainly cheer them up.
Yeah, obviously dropped below the Red Bulls in the standings, so looking to kind of assert their dominance in the Hudson River derby, which they did. But yeah, point behind the Red Bulls still as we are looking to wrap up some playoff places.
Yeah, so Red Bulls have clinched. NYCFC, bearing in mind that they're a point behind Red Bulls, and then that probably
I hate that word.
It probably means that they need 1 point to
Horrible.
clinch. Funnily enough, NYC have got Orlando and Atlanta to play in their next 2 games, so you'd assume that they will get more than 1 point. But
more than 5.
Yeah, but it's their first win in 5 league games, so it was much needed for them. And I think if they can turn it around, if they can get good results in those 2 games, it's what you want. You want a bit of form going into the playoffs, don't you?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think you kind of look at this time of year, it's quite congested. There's a lot of games. The World Cup's not helping as well. It's really hard to get that run of consistency going into MLS Cup. I think that was the problem from a personal level with Orlando last year. They went into it sort of coughing and spluttering and didn't really do a lot. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one when you look at how much it really is hotting up and who has to play who. But we'll cover that as we go, because Atlanta are still not out of it, and that was a big result.
Well, it was a big result against Philadelphia, of course. When you look at Philadelphia on paper, to first of all draw 0-0 and not concede a goal was massive. But then to get the draw, because they'd won their previous 5 games. But I just think for Atlanta, they needed that goal, especially with Inter Miami winning. They've played a game more than Miami and Columbus, who was in above them. Miami being in the playoff spots. It was good. It was much better than what we've seen this season. However, for me, it's just too little, too late. We've got NE Revs and NYC to play, which on paper 2 winnable games, but you're relying on other results. Where if we would have got a goal, which I mean, Philadelphia show why they're the best defensive unit in the league because they kept Atlanta out. Martinez had a header right at the end that could have gone in, but Blake saved it. But yeah, it's those 2 points could have been vital.
Sorry about my yawning.
Am I boring you? Should we talk about Atlanta's win the game before?
I was yawning because it was 0-0. And, to be fair to teams like Chicago that we seem to boo all the time, we can't just praise Atlanta for a 0-0 against Philadelphia.
Well, I think Chicago's fans will be booing them for it's their season up to now.
True. We'll come on to that. New England, who Atlanta are still to play, lost at home to Montreal. They've been so good this year.
Yeah, Montreal they've clinched their spot.
Hate it.
In the playoffs. They're actually they need 1 point to confirm second. I think they will be fine. They will finish second. They're only 5 points off Philadelphia. So I mean, technically,
no,
you still finish top of the East.
Really good season, not that good.
Yeah, well, they got DC and Miami to play. 2 winnable
I
games.
called it with Colorado last year. I'm not having it now. I'm not having it again.
But they've lost 1 in 13, and that's the form that has got them up there. Because you look at the teams below them, you look at Red Bulls who have lost 2 in 3, New York City FC we've already mentioned, Orlando of course have been hit and miss, but have stayed in 5th, and then the teams below them that are fighting for that playoff spot, Montreal have been consistently up there. They would still be second in the West. That's how good they've been, and we've been praising Austin all season.
All over for any Revs?
Well, 4 points off the playoffs and 2 games to go. I think so. Yeah, it's they've lost the last 3. I think they've hit the buffers at the wrong time. I think they were doing well. They started off slow and then seemed to pick up, and they were getting higher and higher up the league, and we were like, oh, they'll be fine now. But 1 win in 8 has meant that they're 11th in the East and probably now not going to get in the playoffs, which for a team that, of course, smashed it last year, very disappointing. Kind of like Columbus did the season before.
They just kept winning last year, just kept grinding out results. Something Orlando don't do, but they did win 4-0 over Toronto, who have had the weirdest season, possibly, it's definitely up there in the top 10 weirdest seasons we've ever seen from a team.
It is. We're rattling through these matches. So much so, I can't even mention again who scored the first goal and then who followed up their 2 goals from a cup game a few weeks ago.
Was it Facundo Torres who scored in the Open Cup final?
He apparently scored 2.
Yeah.
Can't seem to remember it.
Definitely did.
But I mean, Orlando are 3 points above the line. You've still got 3 games to go. You'll be fine, won't you?
Genuinely, who knows?
Really?
We literally we win 4-0 and then lose 6-0. Who knows?
Well, you've got NYCFC next.
We could easily lose that.
Then you got Miami and Columbus. To
lose all 3 of those, it wouldn't surprise me.
To be fair, it is in your hands with those games. All of those teams in and around the playoffs. So if you do lose them all, then you have blown it.
But that's what I'm saying. They could easily lose those games.
I don't think so. I think you'll be fine. I think.
I'm not like doing this for entertainment purposes. I'm genuinely shocked at how confident you are.
Yeah, you'll be fine. I think now Torres is scoring. You'll be all right.
You said that like he's just not turned up all season. He's been one of the only good things about this season.
But I think Orlando, you're looking at finishing the top 4 anyway. Because if you think for any of the top, it'd be Red Bulls or NYCFC or Montreal, I think the Orlando are the team within that sort of playoff picture who would be away, who really you don't want to face. I don't
level on points with Cincinnati.
I know,
in a new stadium.
Cincy have been great, but I just think I don't know. You're doing well. You're showing that you can do well in knockout competition as well, and that's what the playoffs are.
Okay, I will take it. Your confidence is giving me confidence.
Toronto, quick word on them. They're now eliminated, and they won't finish bottom. But I mean, let's face it, with the players they've had, especially since June, July, not good enough, is it? They conceded 4 in each of the last 3 games.
Yeah, they sort of started to show a little bit of something when with the Italians coming in, and then soon tailed off. There's been a lot of teams that have really disappointed me this season. I think there's teams in playoff spots that have disappointed me this season.
Well, I think because you look at LAFC, you look at Philadelphia, Montreal, and you look at those teams because they've done so well. Inevitably, there are going to be teams that
used to be quite a level playing field in this league. And you just sort of look at DC with 27 points.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy that like Philly are on 64. But yeah. Hopefully we see more from Toronto next year. I think we'd both kind of be a bit more confident with them coming back next year.
Definitely. A team that also needs to do a lot better next year is Chicago. They've already been eliminated.
You just build around Shaqiri, surely.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you look at the players they've got.
Shabilko.
Yeah, they've got. I mean, even Duran now has scored 6. He's 18 and scored 6 this season. He's showing promising, but it's just not been enough for Chicago. And we've said it before, about Hendrickson. Is he under pressure? When the dust settles on this season, considering that they're probably going to finish in the bottom 3 or 4 in the East, is he going to be in that role next year?
You have to question it. I'm questioning Oscar Pereira, who's ultimately brought silverware to Orlando. And I'm saying his roster that he should be getting better results. Look at Chicago, right? We both know Chris Mueller is a great attacking player. Kasper Shabilko has been one of the best strikers in MLS for the last 5 seasons. And you've got Shaqiri playing behind them. They also had one of the best goalkeepers. How are you not getting this right?
No. Well, of course, that goalkeeper won't be there next season. So he kind of needs to be a bit of a rebuild again for Chicago. But saying that, they've not scored. They've not conceded many goals. Like Montreal, Orlando, Cincy, Miami, Atlanta, they've all conceded more goals than Chicago this year. It's just going forward. There's the lack of goals. Only DC have scored less.
And what odds did you have on Charlotte not finishing bottom? Because we talked about them in depth at the start of the season.
We did.
No one had any belief in this team, in this roster.
No, and they won't. Let's face it, they're 4 points off the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get in the playoffs. But
it's a fantastic result.
It is, yeah. And if this was they beat Chicago 3-2, obviously, and this was only their 3rd away win of the season. A few more away wins, they would be in the playoffs. So that's something to build on next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at SKC, who won 4-1 at Minnesota. It was at home, but let's be honest, it wasn't a given because they've also been pretty terrible this year.
You know what really stuck out for me in this game is that SKC, I know they've won the last 5 home games, they're unbeaten in 6, so they are doing a lot better than what they were doing. However, there was a full stadium. How many MLS teams who are 12th in their conference would have a full stadium?
I will give them that. Absolutely true. Not been a great season. One we expected them to do a lot better in. But yeah, attendance always so strong.
They won 4-1 against Minnesota. Are you a bit worried for Minnesota? They're 6th, the 2 points above the playoff line. However, they've not won in 5 now. Their form is really not there.
Yeah, you kind of think if they were to make the playoffs, there's no form. There's maybe a lack of confidence as well, which means in that knockout format, they may be in trouble. Although I look at LA behind them and just think, just based on pure history, they might be, Minnesota might be okay versus LA. But yeah, they're actually a team that always seem to be in and around that, that playoff line, Minnesota, consistently, and it's impressive from a side that, let's be honest, just as old as Atlanta United.
Yeah, there you go. The only MLS podcast who will be praising Minnesota after a 4-1 defeat.
I mean, it shows what we know, doesn't it?
SKC looking better though. There's a lot to look for them. There's a lot to look at, thinking next year's going to be better, when traditionally it will be, because they always do really badly and then really well.
I would expect them to be top next year.
Yeah. Right, Austin v Nashville. That's the game on paper, but the real battle this weekend was Mukhtar versus Driussi. They both scored as well, so it was 1-1. Mukhtar opened the goal scoring for Nashville, 23rd goal of the season, and then Driussi with his 21st. The battle for MVP, I've got to say, I think it's Mukhtar's. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't.
You wouldn't have got a lot of money if you'd have predicted the 2 goal scorers at the start of the game.
No, you would have. You could have put $1 million on it and got like £10 back, which makes no sense at all.
Change of currency there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. In all seriousness, look, both teams actually, really impressive. Nashville have been impressive in recent years, making the playoffs. Austin, of course, is going to be their first rodeo. And to be honest, seeing Austin there with 55 points at this stage of the season, well impressed.
Yeah, they just need a draw to secure second. Of course, that gives them a home spot in the playoffs, where they could play Nashville again because they're fourth, but they haven't clinched it yet.
Stop saying clinched.
Portland are just below them. But you'd think that even though they haven't clinched it, Nashville should be fine and they'll get in the playoffs. And I tell you what, if they've got that home game,
I know what you're doing. Stop.
In the playoffs,
Stop.
Then you'd be brave man to bet against them.
Bet against them.
Just doing well in the playoffs once they've clinched it.
I hate it so much. Cincinnati they're just a different team these days. 2-1 win on the road against Real Salt Lake.
Who'd have thought it, right? Going into the last 2 weekends of MLS, it's Cincinnati and Miami going for it for a playoff spot. Who'd have thought that? Well done, Cincinnati. Absolutely smashed it this season. Level on points with Orlando as well. If I'd have said that at the start of the season, you go, Orlando, rubbish, bottom of the league.
Battling it out for the wooden spoon again.
Yeah, but no, Cincy they've been so good this year. Brenner scored 2 this weekend, 14 this season. He's got 5 in his last 2 games. He's hitting form at the right time as well. That's what you need in the playoffs. If you've got someone who's scoring goals, Cincy. Have he dark horses? Can we say that for the playoffs?
Can you imagine if they won it? Can you imagine?
It'd be a true underdog story.
Do you think they win their first game in the playoffs?
At the moment, they'll be away, and they'll probably be away in New York, so that'll be tough. But they can do.
They're intriguing me now. They're really, really intriguing me. But I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing. It's just it's very bizarre to see them doing so well.
RSL are 8th, so LA Galaxy are above them, above that playoff line. Same points, however, in MLS, because we love to do things differently in MLS. It's all decided on most games won. So LA Galaxy have won 1 more game overall this season than RSL. That's why they're above them in the standings. RSL next game, LA Galaxy away.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. And to be honest, I think LA Galaxy fans would agree with me that they probably are more worried about that game.
But yeah, LA Galaxy, I've got a game before that, so they can put a bit of difference between them. But as we saw this week with LA Galaxy, and we'll touch on, they won at the weekend. They lost to Vancouver in the week, so they're unpredictable. If they're going into that game against RSL, I know they're at home, but if they're going into it level on points, then RSL must go there fancying that they can turn them over.
And it's easy to sort of think, a bit of a nothing season from RSL. 4 points ahead of Seattle Sounders, though.
I know. Seattle lost at Vancouver. I mean, what a few days for Vancouver. Shame they couldn't do this earlier on in the season. But they rounded off a few days of beating LA Galaxy 3-0 with a home win against Seattle. And is it time? Is it actually happening?
I think it's happening. It's really impressive if they do it from here.
Seattle they've got 3 games left, and in reality, they need a minimum of 7 points. They've got Cincinnati at home, SKC away, and San Jose at home, so they have got the games there. They can do it, but
it's still impressive.
It would be very impressive, considering they won 2 in 8 as well, Seattle. I'm with you. I think I can see Seattle taking it down to the final game, and then another team winning. Ironically, it could be LA Galaxy actually winning the last game for once to knock them out. But it'll be weird. I don't know. I feel a bit lost without Seattle in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just literally when I think of the MLS Cup playoffs, I just think, Seattle, Toronto, Columbus, Portland. It's kind of those iconic names. Portland have definitely recovered better than Seattle.
They have, yeah. Seattle, I mean, this season will go down in history for them because they won the Champions League. But I just think that has overshadowed it. I think in the league form, they've never been consistent. They've never got... Because we give them a bit of grace, didn't we, until we won that, thinking, well, they're concentrating on that.
I do think, I've always said this, I do think if you qualify for the Champions League, you should be, given a bit of respect, given a bit of time at the start of the season. Everyone should just get off your back a little bit. I do strongly believe that.
We will replay this next June when Orlando are bottom of the conference and you're moaning about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vancouver in 9th. They're only 3 points off LA Galaxy, but they've only got 2 games left. One of them's against Austin. It's unfortunate for Vancouver, but I do think it'll probably be a bit too much for them to get in.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, if Seattle can make it, then obviously so can Vancouver. But you just feel like if Seattle were to do it, it would surprise you a lot less because it's Seattle. Vancouver, for me, I think at this stage, probably just... we are talking very marginally, but a little bit too far behind.
Yeah. Right, LA Galaxy came back from that 3-0 defeat against Vancouver and beat Colorado 4-1. Really impressive. Great goals in this game as well. Let's see, Raheem Edwards, I mean, he scored his first goal in 3.5 years, twisted and turning, put it in the top corner. Chicharito scored a back heel. Gaston Brugman got his first 2 goals for LA Galaxy as well. Convincing win in the end for Galaxy. Just what they needed. They needed a performance like that, didn't they? Yeah,
and you take those 3 points away, and that win, they're down to 9th, 10th, and they are battling it out with Seattle in those final games. So that would have kind of created a bit of a big matchup further down the line. But yeah, I think for LA, doing just about enough to cling on, and at least they've kept themselves in the driving seat just.
They have. They've got San Jose away, RSL at home, and Houston away. So if you look at those matches, if LA Galaxy mess this up from here, they have only themselves to blame. Obviously, they'll be without Douglas Costa, but let's face it, they've been without him for the majority of the season. He's not really...
Is this going to be the year that we see LA Galaxy do something?
Could do, but then inevitably they'll play LAFC at some point and probably get knocked out. But I don't know. I think they will make playoffs from here. I'd be so disappointed. And obviously we don't support LA Galaxy, but having seen them the last few years, they keep on missing out, being for stupid last game decision making, and against famously against Houston and last year as well. I think they do it this year. They get over the line, but then how far do they go in playoffs?
What if their game goes to penalties?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have Chicharito anywhere near it. But I mean, we joke about Chicharito with penalties, but he scored 15 this season. He's the type of guy with his experience of winning stuff that could be influential in the playoffs. But then we have seen with Chicharito in recent weeks, he does make stupid decisions sometimes. So who knows? Galaxy, I think a few people will be choosing Galaxy to go quite far within the bracket just based on the name. But we'll have to wait and see.
And we did say that Seattle could still creep in.
They could.
Colorado are on the same points. Talk to me.
No.
No, wow, okay, that was short.
They've got Dallas and Austin to play. Both of those teams have clinched their playoff spots, of course. I don't see it. And it was always a tough season for them. They did so well last year and probably overachieved last year by a lot. So to follow that up this year, it was always going to be tough.
Okay, Dallas fans, don't at me. At the start of the season, would I have put them much further ahead than San Jose? Don't know.
No.
Not by a long way. But they have done that thing and secured a playoff spot. They are third, and San Jose find themselves rock bottom. They drew at PayPal Park.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of change coming up for San Jose. Of course, Luchi Gonzalez is going to be the head coach after the World Cup because he's assistant to Greg Berhalter. So next year, hopefully, he can put his stamp on things. As long as he keeps a Bobisi at the moment, I think it's just building around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
But credit to Dallas, third in the West. They've clinched a spot, 4 points clear of Portland in fifth as well, so they should get that home game.
We just talked about the teams you associate with MLS Cup playoffs. Columbus and Portland, definitely both there. 1-1 draw at Columbus at home.
Yeah, I mean Columbus again. It keeps on happening. Like I'm not even a Columbus fan, and I'm sick of seeing them concede late goals. Like where would they be without all them late goals conceded? This one was what 95th minute, 96th minute, whatever it was. But Santiago Moreno. 1-1, 7 for the season for him. Portland they're doing well. They're 3 points clear of RSL in 8th. You'd think they will get into the playoffs. They do play RSL last, actually, but they've won 4 out of 5. And we've said about picking up form going into playoffs. Of course, they've got the monkey on the back from last year and how things ended for them on the penalty shootout against NYCFC. That little chip on the shoulder could inspire them going into the playoffs.
And they could still get a home tie. There could still be people working out at the gym, getting to watch some MLS playoff soccer.
They could. Columbus are 8th, level with Miami. 3 less wins, though, so they're going to have more points than Miami because they ain't going to pick that up.
Yeah, and speaking of Miami, big win. I know it is against DC, who have not had a great season, but you've got to go away and score 3 goals. It's impressive. 3-2 winners.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a bit of a cloud over this game with a Taxi Funtas, the alleged racism against Damian Lowe. MLS are looking at that. I know DeAndre Yedlin has come out and said he's called on them to do something big about it. And, we agree if he is found guilty, he needs to, it obviously needs to be addressed and something needs to happen for it. But I mean, this is just another thing to just round off a terrible season for DC, isn't it?
Yeah. Interestingly, Phil Neville said that his respect for Wayne Rooney had gone up more than he ever thought it could, because he instantly substituted him. So regardless of whether it happened or it didn't happen, Rooney's response, taking him out of the situation, is being praised by his former teammate Phil Neville.
Yeah, I mean, Taxi's a good player. He actually scored to make it 2-2 in this game. So I'm sure, there would have been a temptation there to keep him on and try and win the game. But obviously, if it looks like it could be true, probably true, especially with the reaction of the players. So yeah, credit to Wayne Rooney for just taking him out of that situation, because it could have got, it is ugly. It could have got even uglier. But, credit to Inter Miami. We'd love to have a go at them on this podcast. We think they've underachieved massively with the players they've had, but they stuck to it. They got the win last minute. Higuain, another man who we love to hate, 94th minute. He scored 4 in 5 now, and Miami are on. They could make it. They could make the playoffs this time, and
he could be magic in the playoffs as well.
He could, exactly. Miami have got Toronto away, Orlando at home, and Montreal at home. That Toronto, it's funny because that Toronto away game, you'd think, they could go there and win. But Toronto literally have got nothing to lose now. They're eliminated. Orlando, you still have something to play for. Montreal don't, but they're a tough team. So there's no easy games, but they have won the last 2 now, Miami.
Yeah, it's really, really hotting up. It's going to be one of the more exciting seasons in terms of the last couple of weeks, I think, than we've seen recently heading into decision day. One decision that's definitely already been made is that LAFC have had a stonking season. We're just waiting to see who is going to lift the Supporters' Shield. They are level on points with Philadelphia. They've both got an average of 2 points per game, which is hugely impressive. LAFC, of course, top on games won. They've won 20 games out of 32 played. Philly with 18 wins. How good is this LAFC team? And if your team makes it to the playoffs, is it even a competition?
In the West, probably not. But LAFC, you've got to think as well, because Bale, we thought he was going to be the difference going into this part of the season. He's been non-existent, really. He's not played a full game, and he's kind of been forgotten about a little bit. So, players like Carlos Vela scored the 2 penalties at the weekend. He stepped up. They've got others as well, like Ryan Hollingshead also scored. I mean, he's had a really impressive first season for LAFC. So they have got it's not just about him or about Chiellini. They've got a good squad. So it will be tough to beat them. If I was to say to you that LAFC now, I've got Portland away and Nashville at home. And Philadelphia, I've got Charlotte away and Toronto at home. Mm-hmm. Who gets Supporters' Shield? Bearing in mind, LAFC just need to match Philadelphia.
Yeah, because of the games won. I mean, Philly have got the easier games for me, but you win both of those and you think, well, LAFC are still going to pick up points.
Yeah. I think Philly going to Charlotte will be a tough game. They'll beat Toronto at home. There won't be a problem with that. You look at LAFC, Portland away will be tough. They've got something to play for. Nashville at home. Nashville may have clinched it, but will be going for a home game in the playoffs. I think LAFC have got the tougher games, but I think they'll. I don't know. I think they'll be fine.
I got onto LAFC, of course, because they beat Houston. So a word on Houston, eliminado.
Yeah, third team. So not the worst team in the West, but definitely the second worst. Another team looking for next season and just do, well, much better. But I mean, how many times have we said that for Houston over the years?
Just do a new badge. It'll be fine.
MLS UK Show with Elliot Holman and Henry Hewitt.
So it's time to have a look and see who our MLS UK Show Championship champions are. We started off with NYCFC because they won MLS Cup last season, and we've been going through each match week, and basically it's winner stays on. Winner keeps the belt if it was like UFC or wrestling or boxing or whatever. And if you draw, you get to keep it by default. So as we've gone down the list throughout the season, we've had impressive runs like New England Revolution. They had it 10 times. And then we had, Miami had it twice once and then got beat. So last time we checked, Columbus had it for 6 games in a row. They had drawn 5 of those, but 6 games in a row. Mm-hmm. So we now move on. There has been 2 games since then. But who is our champions? Well, it's not Columbus because they got beat to Inter Miami 2-1.
Ooh, Inter Miami, the holders, right?
So then Inter Miami, of course, went to DC at the weekend and won. So they've now retained it for 1 match and they have it now going in to the remainder of the season. Now, if we look at Miami's last few games, I did say before, but to reiterate, they've got Toronto away at the weekend, or in 2 weeks, sorry. Now,
I know what you're going to say.
We have been waiting throughout the years we've been doing this for a team who isn't in the playoffs to have the belt at the end of a season. Because if you have it going into the playoffs, because draws don't count in the playoffs, it inevitably gets sort of filtered down to MLS Cup. However, we knew there would be a time that it would happen where a team who had been eliminated would have the belt. So, Toronto, if they beat Miami, they will then go into their last game of the season away at Philly, so they'll probably lose anyway, but they will go with the title there. So if they draw, they get to keep it, and will then next season start with a fresh team. They will start with Toronto as the champions. If Inter Miami get past Toronto, they've then got Orlando and Montreal. So if they get past them, it will then go, unless they draw the next 2 games and miss out on the playoffs, it will probably go into the playoffs.
Is it weird that I secretly want them to do that? Why do I want them to be champions? It's so weird.
Well, we'll see. But keep an eye on it in 2 weeks when matches resume, and we'll see who will have it, whether it'll be a team going into the playoffs or whether Toronto can shock the world and win the title and then keep it for even longer.
Okay. Every time we've done a main episode this season, I've tried to bring a new game to the show. Mm-hmm. It's not been easy to come up with something different. But I think I've got one for you today.
Okay.
And today's game is called Who Are Ya? What's going to happen is you're going to hear the voice of somebody connected to MLS, and you've got to tell me who it is.
Right. This will be tough. I think it'll be tough.
Okay. What I want you to do is, so people can play along at home, I want you to just write down who you think it is, just so that everybody's got a chance to play along at home before you inevitably come steaming in with an answer.
Got you.
Okay, here is voice number 1.
And when you're a European club, you have the ability to play in the Champions League so that you have broader attention.
Oh.
If you'd like to have a little play along at home, if you're listening, or you're driving, or you're on the train, or you're on a coach, Henry's going to write down the name of somebody who he thinks it is. Got that?
Yep.
Okay. On to mystery voice number 2.
I instantly felt it, and before I could get my left foot down, I had started to turn my body around.
This is tough.
I think the listeners have got an advantage on this one.
Yeah. This is tough.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's clearly someone who has been injured or maybe retired from injury. Can I hear it again?
I instantly felt it, and before I could get my left foot down, I had started to turn my body around.
Okay, I'm basically thinking of a player who has had an injury before.
Okay. Mystery voice number 3.
A mí me gusta Venezuela y yo quiero siempre ayudar, obviamente en lo que pueda. Estoy en una fundación con un compañero ayudándolo, mi amigo Frank Cervelli, para más los niños recién nacidos que no tienen la posibilidad de...
What is going on in the background?
Just disclaimer, they're having their hair cut.
And I hoped it would be
And
that.
it's the electric clippers that you can hear in the background. It's all above board.
Right, so obviously they're Spanish or Mexican. Spanish speaking anyway. I'll explain in a bit. I don't think it's one Mexican player because he's got a bit more of a high-pitched voice, so I'm going to go with another famous Mexican player.
Okay. Mystery voice number 4.
African score a lot of goals. Everyone enjoying the football. I think we're working so well. It's so good for the fun to see the football with a lot of goals.
I'm going for the other Mexican player. But just because I've seen so many of him being interviewed straight after the game recently, obviously famously after he missed that penalty the other week. So I'm just straight away thinking of them.
Okay. Final mystery voice. You ready?
Go on.
So I was walking towards the pass for a striker goal, but I trusted him and I let it run through my legs. And as I did so, I raised my arms.
Yeah, I've got that one.
Could have
That's
gone on forever with that one.
That was actually the most sense he's made we've heard anyway. Okay, I've got my answers here. Hopefully, I've not embarrassed myself.
Okay, so here was mystery voice number 1.
And when you're a European club, you have the ability to play in the Champions League so that you have broader attention.
Henry, who do you think it is?
Listening back, I don't think it's this guy. I put Clint Dempsey.
You think it's Clint Dempsey?
I don't think it is now.
Famously American. Clint Dempsey?
Yeah, no, it's
Wrong. Any other guesses?
No.
It was Don Garber, MLS commissioner.
So tough when you're not seeing the
Yeah,
face.
no, I agree. Okay, mystery voice number 2.
I instantly felt it, and before I could get my left foot down, I had started to turn my body around.
With this one, I just thought of an injury, and I thought of Jordan Morris.
That was Atlanta United's
Brad Guzan.
Brad Guzan.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, mystery voice number 3.
A mí me gusta Venezuela y yo quiero siempre ayudar,
Getting his hair cut,
obviamente
pointing
en
that
lo
out.
que pueda. Estoy en una fundación con un compañero ayudándolo, mi amigo Frank.
Who do you reckon?
I've gone Carlos Vela.
You think it's Carlos Vela?
Mm-hmm.
That was Atlanta United's
Josef Martinez?
correct.
I'm beginning to see a theme here.
Okay, mystery voice number 4.
African score a lot of goals. Everyone enjoying the football. I think we're working so well. It's so good for the fun to see the football with a lot of goals.
Quite out of breath. Good job the noise from the last clip, wasn't it? In that one.
Chicharito.
You think that's Chicharito?
Oh, let me guess. Atlanta United's insert player name here.
No. That is the A-League's Portuguese...
Nani.
Nah, yeah.
As if you've done that. Nani. Oh, well, yeah. He did seem out of breath. He's putting a shift in the A-League, is he?
That was from Manchester United's US tour in like 2010 or something. Okay, final mystery voice number 5.
So I was walking towards the pass for...
I think we can stop it there because it's
Ray Hudson.
Ray Hudson.
There we go.
Well done.
Good old Ray. He had to make it onto this show somehow today.
Can you do that for me next week
Okay, yeah.
or next time?
I'll make a note.
Because that I enjoyed finding the clips, to be honest.
I'm going to choose some really tough names. I'm going to choose some players that you've not even heard of.
I gave you Ray Hudson and 2 Atlanta players.
Yeah, well, well done if you got more than one right on that. Well done, because it is tough, that, especially when, I don't know, we'll have to see if you're listening on your podcast provider, because you're listening. Is it easier because you're kind of picturing things more, whereas with us, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, that was a tough one. That's probably the toughest game you've done. Yeah,
and do you know what? I found it tough picking the players as well, because I knew I couldn't just pick a random. You know, if we were doing somebody for the game with a change of name, you don't need to know loads about them, just the basics. Whereas that, it is tough.
It is, yeah. Right, so I need to get my own back. So covering on predictions from last time, guess who won?
You.
Yeah, I won. So it's 6-5. It's we'll be going into because this weekend we're not doing predictions because there's like one game. So the next time we do an episode, which I think will just be before Decision Day, we will have our own Decision Day.
Kind of makes me want to do a prediction for this game this weekend, just to see if one of us can get a spot.
The one game. Okay, we'll allow this. So it's San Jose. There is Leagues Cup action as well, I've got to say. But the one game.
2-0 LA Galaxy. I'm getting in there first.
San Jose versus LA Galaxy. You know what? To make it interesting, I'll go 2-2. So one of us will win unless San Jose wins.
Yeah, San Jose will win.
There is also because the next round of matches is on starting the 1st of October. There is a match on the 28th of September, which is Seattle versus Cincinnati. So that'll be interesting. Good luck to Canada and the States who are playing as well in that time. Before the World Cup. This last few games now, it's picking players for the World Cup.
I'd like to say a sincere thank you to America for the birth of Joshua Sargent, who has been a different animal this season for Norwich City in the Championship. So thank you very much. Back in the US men's national team setup as well.
Amazing what happens when you're playing in a lower league.
All right, don't dampen it.
But no, it's good to see. We want as many US and Canadian players doing well over in these shows.
What are Bolton doing for the US?
We had Stuart Holden once upon a time and Tim Ream. So we did our bit for 15 years.
Didn't you let Tim Howard score as well?
Yeah, and he scored against us. Yeah. So hey, we've done our bit. Don't you worry about us, mate. We've done our bit.
Oh dear. And just for balance, thank you to Jim Brennan of Canada for your service at Norwich City.
Wow. There you go. Right, let's round off the show and find out the name of the player with the game with the changing name.
Forgot about that.
He was on trial at Bolton, so there we go. We did our bit in the 90s as well.
Started their career at St Johnstone in Scotland in 1986. 3 years later, they left to go to the San Francisco Bay Blackhawks. They also played for San Jose, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, because Bolton wouldn't have them, Necaxa, Seattle Sounders, Colorado Rapids, San Jose Clash, and retired at Tampa Bay Mutiny in 2000. And they've managed, because you didn't get it, they've managed San Jose Earthquakes, they've managed Houston Dynamo, and they've been interim and assistant at LA Galaxy. They now are assistant at FC Cincinnati.
Oh, Dominic Kinnear. Wow, there you go. He moved to the States before either of us were born.
Yes, correct. But well done to you if you got it right. It was a lot tougher than last time when I did Daryl DK, which was already easy, and then accidentally said Daryl.
Yeah. I've got to say, I'm not taking that as a win. I'm taking that as a defeat. So I've got to do better next time when we do an episode just before Decision Day. It's getting closer.
It is getting closer. Decision Day, of course. Famous.
Of course. For LA Galaxy messing it up.
Have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we will see you for Decision Day.
We will. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast provider. Leave us a rating. But if you're going to leave us a rating, use one rule and one rule only. Elliot?
5 stars only, LA Galaxy style. It's never going to be 6, let's be honest.
Could be. They're doing okay. But then decision day comes along and yeah, if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe as well. We'll be back with a stoppage time episode next week. Hopefully stuff will happen because we know matches. No, we might not have as much to talk about. And then we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So you've been
Elliot Holman. Here's the Haney salute.
And I've been Henry Hewitt. See ya.